3 million pages,
Yep.
180,000 images, 2,000 videos. I've just been staring at those numbers since this all broke, and honestly, it's still hard to wrap my head around the sheer scale of it.
It really is. I mean, it's a data dump of historic proportions. We're used to leaks. We're used to these big document drops, but the volume here and just the density of the information, it's something else entirely.
Exactly. And this is the latest release of the Epstein files. And if you've been anywhere near a screen this week, you know the headlines are just, they're absolutely everywhere. But here's the problem, and it's why we wanted to do this deep dive today. When you have 3 million pages, it is so easy to get lost in the noise. You see a headline here, a tweet there, a screenshot completely out of context, and suddenly you don't know what's actually verified and what's, just internet gossip.
Which is precisely the mission for today. We need to cut through that noise. We're not going to speculate. We're not going to do the whole internet sleuth thing. We're going to look strictly at the verified interactions involving some of the world's most powerful figures that have come to light in this specific release.
And before we get into the names, and trust me, we have some massive names to get through, we have to set the context. Why is this happening right now? Why are we suddenly seeing documents from, 2012 or 2018 surfacing here in 2026?
Well, it's a matter of law. You have to remember the Epstein Files Transparency Act. President Trump signed this into law back in November 2025. The deadline for the full release was set, and, well, that deadline just passed. It was a ticking clock that finally hit zero.
But it wasn't exactly a smooth rollout, was it? I've seen reports of a lot of infighting in D.C. about this.
Not at all. There is immediate political friction here. You have Democratic lawmakers and even some Republicans alleging that the Trump administration is still withholding specific documents.
So even with this much out, they're saying there's more.
They're arguing that the obligation hasn't been fully met. So while we have this massive, massive trove of information, there's this backdrop of political maneuvering about what might still be hidden.
Which just adds another layer of intrigue.
Yeah.
But, okay, we have plenty to deal with just with what was released. And I want to dive straight into the deep end here with the tech world. Because for so long, the narrative was that Epstein was a Wall Street creature, or maybe, a Hollywood hanger-on. But looking at these files, it feels like Silicon Valley was just as entangled.
It's a theme we see over and over. Access and influence. These figures didn't just stumble into Epstein's orbit. There was a transactional nature to it. Epstein positioned himself as this gateway between world science, money, politics, and the tech titans were very willing to walk through that gate.
Let's start with Elon Musk.
Yeah.
The files include email correspondence from way back in 2012. And the tone of these emails, it's interesting.
Very.
In November 2012, Musk writes to Epstein asking, and I'm quoting here, "What day-night will be the wildest party on your island?"
It's a very specific request. Wildest party. It implies he wasn't looking for, financial advice or to talk about rocket science. He was looking for a specific type of social environment.
It is. But then, a month later, in December, he sends another email saying he wants to hit the party scene in St. Bart's because a peaceful island experience is the opposite of what he wants. So on one hand, he's asking for the wildest party, and on the other, he's saying he doesn't want to be on a quiet island. It's almost contradictory.
And we have to look at Musk's defense here because he addressed this head on. He took to X, formerly Twitter, almost immediately. He acknowledged these emails look bad, saying they might be used to smear him.
Right.
But he was categorical. He insisted he never actually visited the island. His focus publicly is that we should be prosecuting those who committed crimes, not just looking at who sent emails asking about parties.
So his argument is that asking about the party isn't the same as attending the party, which, okay, is a fair distinction to make.
Precisely. But the proximity is what matters here. It shows that the channel of communication was open. The richest man in the world felt comfortable emailing a known figure like Epstein to ask about wild parties.
Yeah.
That comfort level is the story.
Okay, so if Musk's emails were murky, the situation with Bill Gates is just downright bizarre. And frankly, a little disturbing. We found these draft emails from July 2013. And we need to explain this clearly because draft emails sounds harmless, but in this context, it is not.
This is where it gets fascinating, and we have to be so careful with the details. These appear to be emails drafted by Epstein. It's unclear if they were ever actually sent to Gates or if Epstein was just writing them to kind of hold over him.
Like leverage?
Exactly. In the world of intelligence or blackmail keeping, a draft folder of leverage is a known tactic. It's like a dossier.
And the content is explosive. One of them is written as if it's a resignation letter from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. It complains about having to procure medicine for Gates to, and this is direct quote from the file, deal with the consequences of sex with Russian girls.
It's incredibly specific, and it goes further. There's another draft that starts Dear Bill, where Epstein complains about Gates ending their friendship. In that draft, Epstein makes claims that Gates was trying to cover up a sexually transmitted infection from his then-wife, Melinda.
Wow. That sounds so much like blackmail material. Like, I know your secrets and I have them written down.
It certainly has the structure of leverage. It's Epstein documenting dirt, whether it was real or fabricated, to maintain control or force a connection. If Gates tried to pull away, well, Epstein had this in his back pocket.
And we know this has had a real human cost. Melinda French Gates gave an interview to NPR recently. She didn't address the specific medical claims, but she talked about how this release brings up painful times in her marriage.
Yeah.
She said, I am able to take my own sadness and look at those young girls and say, my God, how did that happen to those girls?
She's shifting the focus back to the victims, which is important. Meanwhile, Bill Gates' spokesperson came out swinging. They called the claims absurd and completely false and referred to Epstein as a proven, disgruntled liar.
Which, to be fair, is an accurate description of Jeffrey Epstein.
It is.
But again, it's the fact that these drafts even existed in Epstein's files that shows how entangled they were. And then you have Sergey Brin, the Google co-founder. This one feels different than the blackmail vibe with Gates.
Right. Brin appears in the files visiting the private island and planning dinners in New York. We have correspondence with Ghislaine Maxwell where she describes dinners at Jeffrey's as happily casual.
Happily casual. That phrase just sticks with me. It just highlights how normalized this all was. It wasn't some dark, smoky backroom deal. It was a casual dinner with the co-founder of Google.
That's the insidious nature of it. It was social currency. Being at that dinner table was a sign of status, even for someone as powerful as Brin.
Okay, moving from tech to politics and diplomacy. And this is where we see actual careers ending in real time. Because unlike the tech guys who can sort of weather the PR storm, politicians have voters and ethics committees.
Why?
Let's talk about the UK angle. Lord Mandelson.
This is significant because it involves money and public office. The files reveal bank statements showing $75,000 in payments from Epstein to accounts connected to Mandelson and his partner.
$75,000. And there's an email from Epstein to Mandelson's partner that says, I will wire your loan amount immediately. Immediately.
That word immediately speaks volumes about the level of access. And the timing is critical here. Mandelson claims he sought Epstein's expertise during the 2008 financial crisis in the national interest. He's portraying it as a strategic consultation.
In the national interest?
Yeah.
By getting a personal loan. That seems like a stretch.
That's exactly the question investigators are asking. Mandelson is stepping down from the House of Lords, and the Metropolitan Police have launched a criminal investigation. They aren't just looking at the money. They're investigating claims that he passed market-sensitive information to Epstein.
So the theory is, Epstein provides the loan, and Mandelson provides the inside scoop on what the government's going to do with the markets.
That is the allegation. And Mandelson maintains he wasn't culpable in Epstein's crimes and only learned the truth later, but that financial tie is just. It's very hard to explain away as purely diplomatic. It looks like a quid pro quo.
Then we have Miroslav Lajčák from Slovakia. This one felt sleazy. I don't know another word for it. It just strips away any pretense of intellectual exchange.
It's a very disturbing exchange from 2018. Lajčák, a high-ranking diplomat, was texting Epstein about girls and diplomacy. He asks Epstein to take the MI girl, presumably referring to a specific woman or model.
And Epstein's reply,
You can have them both. And their sisters.
wow.
It treats these women or girls as commodities, just party favors to be traded. You can have them. It's dehumanizing in the extreme. And the consequences were swift here, too. Lajčák has resigned as Slovakia's national security advisor.
Good. I mean, it's hard to read that and see how someone stays in office. Now, we have to address the elephant in the room, Donald Trump. His name is all over these files. But we need to be really, really careful about explaining what exactly is in this batch.
Absolutely. He's mentioned hundreds of times. But we need to be very specific about the source of these new allegations. This isn't a new flight log or a sign check.
Right. This isn't verified evidence of him being somewhere.
Correct. What we're seeing is a list compiled by the FBI. It's a log of tips from their Threat Operations Center. These are calls coming in from the public.
So random people calling a tip line saying, I think I saw Trump.
Essentially. The files note that these tips are unverified and often lack supporting evidence. So while the volume of mentions is high, the evidentiary weight of a tip line call is very different from, say, a bank statement or a direct email. It represents public perception or rumor more than verified movement.
And Trump's defense remains the same.
Yes. Consistent denial of wrongdoing. He says he severed ties decades ago. And it's worth noting he hasn't been accused of crimes by Epstein's victims in the sworn testimonies we've seen so far. He's using that distinction to distance himself from the people who are being accused.
Okay. One more from the political sphere. Howard Lutnick, the U.S. Commerce Secretary. This one touches on a different strategy. The family shield.
This one seems more social, but still shows questionable judgment. We have emails from his wife, Allison, regarding a family visit to the island and plans for lunch.
Taking the family to the island, that's a bold choice.
The Commerce Department's statement emphasizes that. They said interactions were limited and, crucially, in the presence of his wife. They're using the family setting to argue against any nefarious activity. The logic is, I brought my wife and kids, so obviously nothing bad was happening.
It's the hiding in plain sight strategy again. If the family's there, it sanitizes the location.
Which brings us to a really interesting part of these files, the PR machine. We see Epstein actively working to fix his reputation and powerful people helping him do it. This wasn't a passive thing, it was a campaign.
Steve Bannon. This blew my mind. We're talking 2018, 2019. This is after Epstein's first conviction, after everyone knew he was a sex offender. And Bannon is in the mix.
And after Bannon had left the Trump White House, the texts show Bannon apparently strategizing with Epstein. He's telling him how to rebuild your image as a philanthropist and push back on the lies.
He is helping him make a film.
Yes. Bannon wasn't just a friend. He was acting as a reputation consultant. He looked at Epstein and didn't see a monster. He saw a branding problem.
That is just wild. He's treating a convicted sex trafficker's reputation like a political campaign that just needs a little spin.
It reveals that for Bannon, Epstein was a project, a narrative to be fixed. It's pure strategy devoid of morality.
Then there's Larry Summers, the former Treasury Secretary. This feels less like strategy and more like intellectual vanity.
That's a good way to put it. This correspondence is from 2017. Summers and Epstein are emailing, joking about Trump. Epstein actually wrote to Summers saying, "Your world does not understand how dumb he really is," referring to Trump.
Just two powerful guys gossiping. It makes Epstein feel like one of the guys.
Yeah.
But Summers actually faced consequences for this continued friendship, right?
He did. He resigned from the OpenAI board recently and admitted it was a misguided decision to keep communicating. He took responsibility, which is more than many have done. He admitted that maintaining that intellectual connection was a failure of judgment.
Okay, let's shift gears to the social circle. The royals and the celebrities. Because the visuals here, they're tough to look at. And I think they damage the royal mystique more than any interview could.
We have to talk about Prince Andrew, or Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, as he's referred to in the files. The release includes photographs.
Describe them for us, because obviously our listeners can't see them.
Well, there are images appearing to show Andrew kneeling on all fours over a female who is lying on the ground. He's touching her stomach. In another, he's staring right at the camera.
Do we know when these are taken?
No. The context is missing, date, location, all unclear, but the visual impact is undeniable. It just strips away the royal dignity entirely. You see a prince of the realm in a position that looks predatory, or at the very least, completely compromising.
And then there's his ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson. Her emails are such a stark contrast to the visuals of Andrew. She sounds almost desperate.
Desperate is a fair word, but also incredibly effusive. In 2009, again, this is after his initial conviction, she calls him a spectacular and special friend and a legend.
A legend. That is a hard word to hear applied to him. And there's that weird detail where Epstein emails someone saying, "I think Fergie can now say, I am not a pedo."
It suggests she was vouching for him, or that he felt her friendship validated him. Like, look, the Duchess likes me, so I must be okay. He was using her status to clean his own image.
Now let's talk about Richard Branson. His name appears hundreds of times.
Yeah.
And there was this one quote that made headlines immediately. "As long you bring your harem."
Right. Branson wrote this in a 2013 email. "Love to see you, as long as you bring your harem."
Yikes. That lands horribly.
It looks terrible. Virgin Group issued a clarification stating that harem was a joke referring to 3 adult staff members of Epstein's team.
A bad joke, to be sure.
A very bad joke. But, and this is a really important but, Branson's story actually offers a rare example of the system working. It's the counter-narrative we need to pay attention to.
How so?
Well, according to Virgin Group, Epstein offered a charity donation. Usually people just take the check. It's easy money. But Branson's team did due diligence. They looked into Epstein, found the allegations, and they actually refused the money.
Wait, they turned down the cash?
They did. They cut contact. It's one of the few instances in these millions of pages where someone actually said, wait, this guy is bad news, we're out.
That is fascinating. It proves it was possible to say no. It wasn't inevitable that you had to be friends with it.
Exactly. It removes the excuse of, oh, we didn't know. If a corporate due diligence team could find it, others could too. It shows that association was a choice, not an accident.
I want to do a rapid-fire run-through of some other names because the breadth of this network is what's so overwhelming. It's not just politicians and tech guys. It permeates everything.
It's everywhere. Sports, health, entertainment.
Steve Tisch, co-owner of the New York Giants.
Asking Epstein if a woman he met was a civilian or a pro. Using the language of prostitution casually.
Brett Ratner, the Hollywood director.
There's a photo of him on a sofa, embracing a woman sitting right next to Epstein, just chilling.
Peter Attia. He's that huge anti-aging influencer. This one surprised a lot of people.
Hundreds of emails, joking about female anatomy, discussing the Miami Herald articles, exposing Epstein but still maintaining the friendship. He says he was never on the island, but the digital closeness is undeniable. He was engaged in the banter.
And Casey Wasserman, chairman of the LA 2028 Olympics.
Flirty emails to Ghislaine Maxwell back in 2003, asking to see her in a tight leather outfit.
When you lay it all out like that, Ratner, Attia, Wasserman, Tisch, it really paints a picture of this blur between business, pleasure, and just casual cruelty.
That is the key takeaway for me. If we step back and look at the synthesis of all this, tech, politics, Hollywood, royalty, you see a pattern. It's not verified criminal acts for all of them, but it is a verified culture.
Go on.
It's about the blurry lines of access. So many of these people claim they had limited interaction. You know, oh, I met him once. Oh, he was just a financial advisor. But the emails tell a completely different story.
They show casual dinners.
Casual dinners, family visits, personal loans, reputation management. It wasn't just business. It was a social ecosystem where Epstein was the sun, and all these planets revolved around him because he had what they wanted: money, connections, or girls.
And for many of them, the fact that he was a predator was just a detail.
It appears it was a detail they were willing to overlook as long as the peaceful island experience or the loan kept coming. The utility he provided outweighed the morality of his actions.
So what does this all mean for us, the listeners? We've gone through the names. Mandelson is facing an investigation. Lashak resigned. Summers resigned. But for a lot of these guys, it's just embarrassment.
For now, yes. But I think the so what here is about the shield of power. This deep dive shows that access to power creates a shield that takes decades to penetrate. Epstein operated for years after his first conviction because he made himself useful to powerful people.
It's not just about one bad man. It's about the village that sustained him.
No, it's about a network of complicity. It's about how politeness and greed allowed a predator to operate in plain sight. It forces us to ask, how much bad behavior do we tolerate from people just because they're useful to us?
And that leads us to the final thought I want to leave everyone with. We've seen emails about quick cups of tea, loans, and lunch dates.
Seemingly innocent things, the banality of evil in a way.
Right. But here's the question. At what point does a quick cup of tea become an endorsement? When does asking for a loan make you complicit in the crimes of the lender?
And with 3 million pages just released, we have to wonder, how many more peaceful island experiences are still hiding in there waiting to be found? We've only scratched the surface.
That is a terrifying thought. Thank you for listening to this deep dive. There is a lot to process here, so take your time. We'll be back next time to unpack whatever else surfaces.
Stay curious and stay critical.